White, 8 seconds. Charles Barkley.
Johnson around his man, drives his
Chambers scores over Lamar Jackson. Stoudemire scores. Rejected. What a defensive effort that time. And Crowder looking for the alley. Kevin Durant. Break it out here. With the long one, won't get it. Long rebound. Finds Booker. This is going
Well, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to Suns Planet Pod for a very special St. Paddy's Day episode. You know, we're gonna be visiting the great country of Ireland today, and we've got Matt from the UK joining us back again. Thanks so much for being here, Matt.
Thanks a lot for the invite again, man. It's an honor to be here, man. I must have done something right the first time to be invited back. So yeah, let's get into it, man. Excited about this one.
Absolutely. And of course, you guys always know my esteemed colleague, the Thunder from Down Under, the Australian mate himself, Sir Hamo.
What's going on, gentlemen? What's going on, Suns Planeteers? Are we excited? Are we ready?
Well, we've got a few games to talk about, but unless I'm forgetting. Oh, that's right. We've got former Suns Center fan favorite Pat Burke joining us. To welcome him out here, let's go ahead and show what our producer Josh was able to put together this week. I hope you all like it, Suns Planeteers. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Pat Burke. Like Burke. If I could be like Burke. If you're ruggedly handsome like me, or tremendously talented, where are you going? Don't stand, Pat. You got to get in the game.
That is rubbing it in the face a little bit, isn't it? But, you know, they're having fun. The fans are enjoying it.
I wanna be like Burke. If I could be like Burke.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, the handsome, the talented, Pat Burke.
I appreciate that video. Josh, I've never met you, the producer, but you did a great job of collecting some really good highlights. How y'all doing?
Doing great. Thanks so much
Doing
for joining
great,
us
man.
today.
Very well, man.
Putting us in your
Thank you for
schedule.
being here, Pat.
Oh, gosh. Pat, just a quick intro for us, you know, for people that might not remember the 7 seconds or less Suns. Could you give us a little bit of an intro of yourself before we kick off the show here?
Yeah. My name is Pat Burke, former professional basketball player. I had the honor of playing with the Phoenix Suns, the 05-06 season, 06-07. At that time, played along some of the greats, MVPs, Steve Nash, Sean Marion, Amari Stoudemire. Played under the 7 seconds or less style of Mike D'Antoni and his staff, where we played a very fast-paced offensive style, which I think that was not only just the architect of Mike D'Antoni, but it was very special because it fit for a playmaker like Steve Nash and the athleticism of Amari and the rest of the guys. And so my time with the Phoenix Suns, of course, whenever we would get into opportunities to blow teams out, Mike D'Antoni also played a 7-man rotation. So the other guys who didn't get to play so much would normally get to play at that time, and that's where a lot of fans got to recognize that, hey, there's some other guys in the team that they're fun to watch and they're fun to celebrate this game of basketball.
Well, absolutely, and we certainly remember some great times with that with that Suns run that you were a part of, and obviously you did ingratiate yourself with the fans so much. We've got JC actually down in Chile. He was our guest on the last show, in the middle of a wedding party right now, but he wanted to make sure he's tuning in to the Pat Burke episode. So you certainly had a big impression, as did that entire franchise. And of course, I know we've spoke on this show, as have a lot of Suns podcasts about how Matt Ishbia has done a lot to kind of bring the fandom back to the 7 seconds or less. Sean Marion, obviously, and Amari have recently been brought into the Ring of Honor. We love to see that as well. And because a lot of us came up maybe as very young, remembering the Charles Barkley days, but we really kind of, I guess, should I say, came of age in the 7 seconds or less days, where it just felt like we were with you guys all along the way. I know for a lot of us, this was the early days of League Pass. So for myself, and based in Iowa, I'm used to getting the WGN only Chicago Bulls broadcast, maybe. So the advent of internet radio made the ability to listen to Al McCoy's voice call the games, and of course the amount of games you guys got national coverage on TNT, was able to make it so that when I'm sitting in a dorm room studying for a big finals test and I see Pat Burke goes in, I know we've won this game. So the ultimate closer, Pat Burke.
Hell yeah.
But we're going to give everyone kind of a little bit of an idea. This is going to be kind of a traditional episode. We are going to talk a little bit about the Suns up and down week. We're 2-2 this week, 6-6 since the All-Star game. We'll kind of briefly go through those games. We'll pick our Sun Walker and our Black Hole Sun of the week. We'll take a trip into the Boom Boom Room, and then we'll dive into all things Pat's professional career, the titles he's won in Europe, his time with the Suns franchise, and of course, it wouldn't be anything about St. Paddy's Day unless we dive deep into Ireland. So we'll be hearing a little bit about that before we close out with a preview of the next game. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at what we saw this week, guys, and. Well, for a 2-2 week, I feel like the fans online were feeling a little like the wind had been taken out of their sails. We dropped both games to Boston, and we had Devin Booker missing during the first game. We took on a tough Cleveland Cavaliers team. We were able to put them away, I think, fairly convincingly, but they were without Donovan Mitchell and Mobley there as well. And then last night, we were able to finish off. Although fourth quarter woes still are a concern, we were able to put away the Charlotte Hornets, who are, certainly I don't want to say a bad team because especially as we have an NBA player here, I'm not going to be that fan that says, "Oh man, we could take the Hornets down." Every one of those guys could absolutely crush us in a game of one-on-one. However, against this Suns team, we want to see the Suns take care of business, so we certainly understand that. So let's start with our guest of honor, Pat. What were some of the things that you saw this week, or just kind of overall so far with this Suns franchise?
A wet blanket alarm coming. I don't watch NBA basketball.
Not at all.
That's okay.
It's I come from a standpoint. That's why I'm not trying to be a wet blanket, but I've spent so much time in a gym and shooting and all this. I go with what there's a phrase or a quote that Isaiah Thomas shared is that if everything you know about me is just basketball, then I've wasted my life. And I'm not trying. That's again, I'm not trying to be a wet blanket, but I just don't have any more time for that. I want to spend time with my family.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know what, Pat?
That's
I think
awesome.
that's super respectable, and I can certainly. So I have a career that works a little bit more in the public sector around political fields, and I remember when House of Cards was all the rage in Washington D.C. and around the country, and people would come up to me and be like, "Have you seen the latest show?" And I go, "I live it, pal. I don't need to watch it. I don't want to watch. I don't want to come home from work and watch what I just did at work. I want to unplug a little bit." So I totally respect that.
How long ago did you stop watching the professional stuff?
Yeah.
Can you ask that again?
How long ago did you stop watching the professional?
I would say right away. I'd say right away.
Okay.
When you're talking about a journey of anybody who's looking to excel or get to a level, you're soaking in everything. And
Yeah.
I'm not jaded by the experience, but when I got there, I was there. I was in the locker room. I did all of that, and you understand the dry erase board and the tactics and the technical skills needed. But towards the end of my career, there was no more butterflies in playing, and I knew it was time to let it go. And at that time, I was playing in Poland of all places. So I was sitting there going, the game of basketball is beautiful. It's a very fun thing, and it's just I've put so much time into it now. I can't see myself, investing in it the same way. And it's funny is even here in Orlando, if the Orlando Magic invite a number of the former players in, it's very rare that I look at in a skybox where we're all at and anyone's sitting down watching the game anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So do you go out and watch any local, like any high school teams or anything around your area?
I love the game.
Yeah, okay.
I love
So
seeing
you're still into the game.
I love seeing people on their journey and seeing where they're at.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that I step in and give advice or anything. I just love seeing where they're at. And if there ever is an opportunity for them to say, hey, what are your thoughts on this? It's with respect. I asked, what are they looking to achieve with it? Because, again, I think that youth sports and collegiate sports at these certain levels, there are numbers of ways to approach it and keep respect of saying, hey, this podcast, basketball brought us together. And, again, is more closely the Phoenix Suns then create this linkage of saying, hey, we're fans. But I think what we really attribute to it as well is how special the game is what it's done for us as far as our emotions. It's like, it's brought family together. You meet friends and this, that, the other. And that's what the Suns have done for me as well. And that's what's great. If I watch sports, I promise you, I don't get emotionally attached to a score. I just enjoy the experience of what it does for the people that I'm with and having that be a part of my life still.
I'll tell you what, Jake, I think I'm going to need to get a bigger bed in the spare room because Pat's speaking to my soul.
Hamo has a tendency to invite every guest we've had on to his place out in Australia. So you certainly got a bunkmate if you ever need a place to crash out near
Sydney, man. Just hook us up, man. I'll fit you up. I'll fit you in somewhere.
I appreciate that, but with respect,
your honesty, man, when it comes to the game and to your level of participation, interest in the game, it's really cool that you're able to be honest with that and just say, you're not into the NBA anymore. You're much more into watching the growth and the journey of the people coming up. And every week I say it, that's a beautiful thing, man. It really is.
I appreciate it. I totally agree. I think that you can identify, again, and it's not just, I'm a big youth advocate and looking at the development and how to help kids and empower them with, whatever it is, confidence or the ability to self-reflect. And when you look at our sports worldwide, that's the platform in which a lot of kids get to find themselves and to grow. And that's always been very fun to see. And that's why I think it's very interesting when you go through documentaries on athletes and figuring out what propelled them to have, and it's not just a physical space. We're not looking at, Shaquille O'Neal wasn't always 7'2". At some point, he was a big guy in the classroom, but he had to control that, and he had to have mentoring around him in an environment that created affirmation of these are good qualities to have, and these are good things to excel at. And let's look at some of the things that we can start to put on the board of how to plan and move forward in those things as well. And again, as that goes hand in hand with professional sports. Everybody doesn't arrive to the NBA a completely formed package because, as we all know, there's more than just the technical skills of putting a ball in the metal cylinder. There is, of course, there's emotional maturity, and as we saw 5-6 years ago with guys that put an emphasis on breaking the stigma of mental health and realizing, hey, we're all just we're just big globules of emotions. This is deep.
No, this is awesome, man. This is beautiful. I know we're going to run over time. So I'll refer back to our host Jake, because I could just sit here talking about this all day, bro. This is
no,
amazing.
that's great, and that's actually the overwhelming bulk of this is going to be on those stories. I just want to see check in real quick. We'll like I said, we won't break down each game individually, but like I said, my takeaway is that this team's maybe still trying to find their identity a little bit. We want to see, and I think Bradley Beal gave that response in an interview just recently, saying that, it takes time to, when you're a great player and playing with other great players and, kind of knowing where they're all at on the court. And so it's going to continue. We do have, 20-ish games left now. And so we're going to see if we can't put that together here to be able to make a strong run in the playoffs. And so, Matt, what are your any additional thoughts to throw in there on the week?
Not much, to be honest, man. Yeah, I mean, the two defeats come up against, the best team in the Eastern Conference. So, and if they get threes like they did against us, they're going to be hard to beat, aren't they? So, it's not really surprising that we kind of come out of those two games with two losses, unfortunately. Took care of business last night against Charlotte, second night of a back-to-back. They sometimes can be a bit of a banana skin. And then kind of a nice road win against the Cavs. KD doing his thing. But yeah, just a standard kind of 2-2 week, man, to be fair.
Okay. Hamo, anything to add?
Not particularly, man. I mean,
okay.
It was a disappointing week, of course. Would we have liked to have seen the Boyd sweep, 4-0? Of course we would have. But things just didn't play out that way, man. We've still got a lot of learning to do. You mentioned identity. Main things are the same thing. It's the same things we've been speaking about for years. They just come back in cycles. Now we're back to turnovers. Our handles are shocking. Beal's dropping the ball. Durant's dropping the ball. Some of the passes are silly. Closeouts, fourth quarters. The rotation was good. I love what Bowl did. When he came in, I think his minutes may increase a little bit. But then again, Eubanks must have watched every single pod in the last week, because he stepped up a little bit as well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's not a week we can really talk too much more about, man, because it was just meh. Wasn't great.
Well, yeah, and like I said, I kind of want to make sure that we're diving mostly into this episode on Pat's career, but I do want to give one shout out, because I think we do like to give some accolades on this show. That one gentleman who had a very strong game this week. He notched 11 rebounds in the first Boston game, 8 against Cleveland, 20 against Boston again, and then 21 in the game last night. You know him, you love him, the Bosnian Beast.
It's a flush, savage slam dunk. Rebound with the sound of this welcome funk. Bosnian Beast.
We love a big man on this show, Pat, and we are so impressed with how Jusuf Nurkic has been able to fit in with this team. There's a lot, of course, of us that were big fans of DeAndre Ayton, and we were a little interested how the swap out of a big man for a big man was going to work, and Jusuf Nurkic has been putting in that work with a phenomenal week of controlling the glass.
Tied now with Tyson Chandler for most back-to-back 20-point rebound games, if I'm saying that right.
That's impressive.
Well, yeah. The only two.
Also former
Suns people.
Yeah. Pat, let me ask you a little bit, because I don't think we have this quite in kind of our rapid fire section or in our Q3, but as a center, I mean, you could shoot from distance, which was obviously, the 7 seconds or less Suns. I feel like a lot when we watch the modern NBA, you guys were the blueprint that everyone based it on. I mean, maybe the Warriors took it the next step, but now, I think I read a statistic that the D'Antoni Suns would actually be amongst the slowest in the league in the modern NBA. Something that just blew us away. That blew me away when I heard it at first, because everyone basically wanted to be like that. And of course, we all were listening to the likes of Sir Charles Barkley saying you can't play like that in the playoffs too. Obviously, you can. That there's been a lot of success for these teams. Jusuf Nurkic, a guy that does not mind roughing people up in the paint, playing with his body, playing with size. Can you talk to us about some of the players you're seeing, bigger people, whether it's in the NBA or younger kids, that how they're starting to learn to play with size? Are they moving too far away from the paint and maybe not utilizing that strength as much as they used to, or do you think it's been a overall net positive overall?
First of all, I'd say it's not it's not a good, bad, right or wrong. It's just evolution. If we look at it, what changes? Time, space, and information. Time, space, and information. I'm going to get really strange on this part of my answer. If we go way back to that Charles Barkley time with the dinosaurs, what was being requested as far as the X's and O's, get the ball in to the bigs, and where we have the traditional sense of a slower game. The referees were making different calls, and the game was different. And the funny thing is you get people nowadays where they're talking about, well, could this person score like this now, or could they just? It's a different time, space, and information. And in doing so, there's also an influence of what the leagues and what the fans like. Like, we're not realizing that there are people in a board going, okay, was this NBA Finals as quality as we would have liked? What could we do differently? And every time they do that, they're saying, okay, what do we change? What do we do? And at the same time, okay, so that goes into how does that influence what the youth want? So if any kid is getting, back in the 80s, they're getting these VHS tapes saying Patrick Ewing's post moves, 7 great post moves. They're learning those things and saying, this is what I need to replicate to become that star that I want. I mean, it's almost like paralleled with like taking a microphone and singing into your hairbrush, in front of the mirror. You're emulating something. So now let's fast forward from the 80s and let's go into what we're seeing as far as how the game starts to get faster. Well, as that's going on, we're starting to look at again as now the youth game is getting faster. Now the youth game is because you can't stop. I promise you, like parents will say, you can't stop your kid from wanting to emulate their heroes. Like if they're going to sit there in their Superman underoos and put their fists up in the air and go around the living room and pretend they're flying, they're going to do it all day. They think they're Evel Knievel. They're going to do something to their bike and they're going to make jumps. If you want to be Steph Curry, as we know the Steph Curry factor, you're not going to sit there and work on post moves or mid-range. You're going to work on shooting shots with the goal to make the basket, just at a distance, not the same form, because of course they're not in an environment to learn the technique and skills and that, but they're just looking to achieve something. So now we're always just seeing the cusp of, let's say in 15 years, what's about to happen, because what are we seeing? Like you're sharing, there is, and I know this is a long-winded answer. We're starting to see some of the bigs come back with this recipe of fast-paced game. Yeah. So are we going to start to see a little bit of a hybrid mix of the 7 seconds or less that maybe the Warriors started to change and I don't want to say perfect, but evolve. And now we're starting to bring bigs back, because now if you're a big, maybe in today's world, these kids are being taught, if you're a big, how are you going to make it up and down the court? And those bigs are learning to run and just starting to evolve. And the great thing is it's like if kids want to play and their peers are going to pressure them into, if you want to be a starter and you're going to do this, we all went through this as kids going through sports or whatever it is. Your peers are going to keep reflecting, well, you don't look like that person, or you're not fast as that person. And you're going to go to your garage or your lab and you're going to work on everything you're going to do. And you're going to start to see that we're going to start getting bigs again. And they could be at large size, 300 pounds, and they're going to be able to run. I mean, I don't know if you've seen Taco Fall, some of his videos lately, but that guy needs another shot, because he doesn't look like your big dinosaur movement. He's all of a sudden he's working on ball handling skills and all types of moves that you're going. I think he was understood as maybe another big dinosaur without realizing that maybe he's got some of that space to desire to realize that he's got to be fast to stay on the court. So long story short, maybe what's changing or what's evolving is not so much just one thing of saying, well, is it GMs making decisions? Is it, okay, we're going to get rid of Aiken and we're going to put in this other guy, but maybe it's really what's coming below us is whatever the television screen does, the kids are emulating and wanting to be. And inside of that, there's also that world of almost the high school bubble that if you don't look like that your peers are going to tell you, and it starts to change you to become that person. I hope that made sense.
No, 100%. It's funny.
Sense, man.
I grew up to the ripe height of 6'2", and I was playing power forward in my high school because I thought I wanted to be like Sir Charles Barkley, and everyone else is like, "Oh yeah, my dad used to watch him," and I'm like, "Shut up! I'm going to go show you how to rebound right now." And I was good at it.
Yeah.
But I also was going up against guys 6-7 inches taller than me that could go out and shoot a three, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's not my job. My job's to rebound."
Well, let's stay on that because this is very interesting. Let's say you did. Let's say you're the misunderstood new prototype, like a Ben Wallace, the guy who's 6'8", but he's defending Shaq and he's getting 14 rebounds a game and he's leading the league. Now you're the case study. When you're the case study, you're not the person who's gone in and you've got the world standard of science and technology behind you. You didn't have Tim Grover training you, and you're just this thing. They're going, what's going on here? And what happened to you is inside of the environment of the world, time, space, and information, it started to create something. They go, we don't know how that happened. Yeah, they don't know. They're sitting there going, well, how does Wemby this height and doing this? Because Wemby's watching the NBA, let's say 5-10 years ago, and he's working on specific skills. Whereas if you go back 20-30 years ago, if I was sitting there doing that, yeah, I wouldn't get the playing time because the coaches would have been sitting there and fighting me and arguing me. You belong under the basket and this, that, and the other.
You got
So
to fit a
what I'm saying is your
stereotype.
lifestyle of where you went through and your experience could have been that space where if you had produced it, you would have been, again, as that field study person, people go, what is this? There's a hiccup in the matrix.
No, that's a great point because, and I mean, I think a lot of people, as our good friend from the Aussie Suns fans podcast reminds me, I can't play ball. I choose not to at the time of this recording. But
I choose not to play.
Everyone has different growth spurts, of course, and stuff like that in high school. So I think, I definitely went from strong, taller kid to everyone else got bigger than me very quick. And the coach just said, let's put you out to guard. And so I never had that skill set, and I never had an interest in developing, a ball handling skill set. So I think that's a great point. But guys, should we take Mr. Burke to the boom boom room? Buy him a drink?
Oh, it'd be an honor.
All right.
Well,
Absolutely.
Folks in the chat, we're going to do a little rapid fire questions for Pat before we kind of dive into some deeper storytelling and learn a little bit more about the career in Ireland. So get ready on and put your quick chat questions in the chat so we can get as many answers as we can in. And you have the length of this segment to get them sent in.
What's the name of that nightclub of yours again?
You talking about the Boom Boom Room?
Yeah, the Boom Boom Room. That's it. Yeah.
That's right. Pat is in the boom room this week with the Suns Planet. And as always, Luca is not allowed in, but belly up to the bar with us, Pat. Let's start with some rapid fire questions. I hope Matt and Hamo are ready because I'm going to turn right to them for the quick fire segment here. Matt, what's your first question for Pat?
Oh, good question.
What are you saying?
Pull on me first then, man. You've done me.
all right, I'll go.
Yeah, go on, bro.
During your time in the NBA, Pat, who was your toughest opponent? Who was the one that gave you the hardest time for you trying to do your role, your job?
First of all, with the respects to all the guys, everybody earned their right to be somebody that you have to research and be ready for. So right away, you're at a level where everyone's there trying to be their best. So that puts you on nerves. Playing, I was fortunate enough to play Shaquille O'Neal, and that was obviously a larger than life assignment. I still remember, if I can add any type of funniness to this, when I was playing for the Orlando Magic, I was the starting center for the beginning of the season, and I remember we were heading out to out west, and Doc Rivers was our coach, and he was asking, just to get me ready for the assignment. He's like, Pat, have you ever played Shaq? And I was like, no, I have not. And he's like, guys, anybody got any advice for Pat? And I'm sitting there like, I'm almost like pen and paper, like trying to take notes. And I remember Horace Grant's like, yeah, if he goes to dunk on you, get out of the way. And that was it. That was
That's
like
probably the best advice you'll ever get when it comes to facing Shaq.
Yeah, no.
So then I was,
That's cool.
then it came to action. We were in the Staples Center, and of course, there it is. He gets the ball on the post. I'm sitting there, and I've got my forearm, at his lower back, 2 dribbles, and he dunks on me, and the whole Staples Center goes crazy. So yeah, so it's just one of those things that you're like, you can't really experience it until you're sitting there going, this guy's twice my size, and he's very athletic.
He's a big man. No, thank you, Pat. Maddie, you got one?
Yeah. I got one teed up too. Pat, who was the funniest guy in the Suns locker room in the 7 seconds or less team? Who is the most comedic?
There's a lot of guys. I mean, I think Brian Grant was funny in his way, and a lot of guys were funny because of their personality, and then you'd know it, and then you'd see how they would react to situations on the road. So Brian Grant's this very charismatic guy. He's got good energy, but he's a feel good. So like if the room is making him feel good, he feels good. When the room wasn't, then he gets a little anxious. And I still remember there was moments where we went to the opposing team's weight room during one of our away games, and somebody was saying something to one of their teammates, and Brian was right in the middle of that conversation, and he didn't know if he was being spoken to with some explicit words. And so as we walked back to our locker room, I remember he was sitting there just like, man, I think that guy was saying something to me. And this is what made it funny, is knowing him and going, he's not going to let this go. And we sat there, and it was like, Mark Ivoroni and the coaches were like, hey, we got like 5 minutes before the big man meeting. And Brian's just sitting there, and he's turning in like there's like fire ants all over him. And he was like, oh, hell no, I got to go talk to this guy. And he just took out of the locker room, and we're laughing. It's like saying to myself, like, I knew he was not going to be able to let this go. And he'd come back, and he would just be like, oh, no, he wasn't talking to me. He was talking to someone else on the other side. It was a total misunderstanding. And we're like, we all knew that already. So those things to me were more funny as far as like that. But, as far as like somebody being, silly or that, I don't know if I can find that person right now.
There was no prankster on the team or anything like that?
I don't remember any prankster.
All right. Matt.
Yeah, Pat, as you were the first Irish-born player in the NBA, did you feel a sense of responsibility to not only do well for yourself, but also to kind of, you're representing a whole country? Did you feel that pressure, or did you kind of not think about it?
It's funny you say that. Is I think the first time I played for the Irish team was with the World University Games. This was when I was still in college. I played with them when I was about 19. And a great sense of pride when I put the Irish jersey on. A great sense of pride.
Sure.
Going through that journey then of working and meeting those next levels, as I went through, and I guess we're going to talk about it later, but playing in Europe, playing for different clubs and winning championships, and then making it to the Magic, I think I was so laser focused on it that I started to forget where I was coming from, like where the origin story was. And I remember my father was the first one to tell me, he's like, I think you're the first Irish-born NBA player. And it was this, like, you're kind of looking back, trying to see the back of your skull, like, huh, what? What does that even mean yet? Because I wasn't wearing that during the journey. I was only when I was really coming out of the starting lineup off the bench that I started to really grasp it and go on, holy shit, this has happened. And again, it's interesting too, and it's not to say you're representing a nation, but you do have the opportunity to become an ambassador of saying, there is a space of going back to youth again is a big part of my life, is going back and saying, hey, look, if there's a very little history known of Irish basketball, think how the long shot of my story even makes sense, and it doesn't. It's like, hey, here's this kid from Ireland, right? And people are like, what? What was he doing over there? He didn't even start playing until he was at. Well, what's the Irish part of the story? He's like, well, my family and our culture of understanding, when we moved to Cleveland, Ohio in America, when we first came out, we were very unto ourselves. Like any immigrant, we didn't go out and just start researching sports and different cuisine and this. We stayed very strong into the Irish culture and staying true to who we were and what we understood and confident. And so I remember when my aunt, for the first time, even talked about sports she actually signed up my cousin for ice hockey. And she asked me in the kitchen if I'd like to play. The first thing I did, I looked at my Irish parents like, what do we know about ice hockey? And we didn't. And that was a courageous thing to do, was to get into that. Mm-hmm. So again, there's many parts of that I'd say it's an honor to have that, but it's a great privilege to have the ability to talk to youth and to talk to people about that opportunity of saying, that if I even scratched the surface of that, and I didn't even get the opportunity to play all my life. Like and this is a tangent thing, is I started playing basketball at 16, and I was very fortunate that in a leadership sense, my dad didn't know anything about basketball, and he didn't get in the way of myself and my coach, who had a great environment with one of my coaches. And again, it's another big plus is I didn't have any bad habits to break. I was all starting from brand new habits, and that I think is one of the biggest factors I had to get there. So the only thing I look back is wishes if I did have that long, to play that, as a kid, all those years of basketball, how different would my career be?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hindsight's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
We got some
pressure on him there, Matt. You never thought about being the only Irish person until you brought it up. Way to go, mate.
Yeah.
Some of our questions coming in through the chat. So says Jay of Fanning the Flames podcast says, so what was your favorite pro stop outside the U.S.?
I have great memories of playing in Spain, in Greece, and Poland. I mean, again, I don't collectively, there's little bits of everything with them, and not to say that everything is all rainbows and butterflies. There is some crap in there too, but there is some really good understanding that that the cultural differences from my household to American basketball and growing up in America, and then of course getting over to Europe and really just being a part of something else, it was beautiful. And it wasn't, I tell you, the game of basketball created that. So it's like when people talk to me about, hey, how was this? I don't sit there and talk about, I remember dribbling and working on my ball handling and this one shot, or I remember the big shot. It's like, I don't give a crap about that shit. I'm gonna sit there going, hey man, I really enjoyed, like the brotherhood that I created with those people, like my friends or my teammates. So I remember those moments where my kids and we spent here and there and that, and the game has connected that. But respectfully, it's not the one thing that drove me to say, well, that was the best experience there. It was really more of the bridge that gaps sports and life.
Okay. Our producer Josh actually had the question. So he's from the Canary Islands. And
yeah.
That picture of you in that shirt. He wanted to see what the connection was.
So I played. So the year I came out of the Orlando Magic, I shared with you that I was the starting center, and very soon after, Doc took me out of the starting lineup, and I had my first introduction to how fast the NBA machine picks up on your game. Like they knew right away my scouting report. Hey, this guy's going to have, he has a soft 15-foot jumper, do this, that, and the other. And next thing you know, I was obsolete. And then that starts to wear on your confidence, and you're not getting the playing time. So at the end of that year, Doc came up to me and he said, hey, you know what? We really want to bring you back. Really enjoyed want to figure out what you want to do. And I said, you know what, Doc, I love the NBA. I got the experience, but I think that my best ball has always been playing in Europe. And so, we separated ways. And then my next stop was the Canary Islands. So I played for the Canary Islands for, I want to say about 4 or 5 months. And it was the first and only team that I got cut from. That's a
bring up a sore memory there, Josh. Yeah.
No, it's not. It's a great memory. I found out I was getting cut because the cleaning lady that we had came in our apartment. She's like, it's very odd that you're cleaning your place when you're going to be off the team here. And I'm like,
that's So that must have been interesting. Charles has a great question too that I know a lot of us have wondered about, guys coming through on a bench role. What is the hardest part about performing cold from the bench and trying to get into that high intensity?
Confidence.
Bang.
You're gonna know this right away. Is the more you do something, the more you're able to be yourself. So if you take a guy like a Sean Marion, he can put up a bad shot and not think twice about it because bad shots happen, and the team is going to allow that, and the franchise is allowing it. When you take anybody else and they've had a spot where they're not playing for a minute and they're going to be out there, they're on an intense space, and you can't operate in business and you can't operate in relationships working through fear. And when you do that, you're not the best version of yourself. You're just the one that's looking to become the best version. And it can never get there because it might be a fluke. Oh, I shot the ball really well, but I still was nervous for the game. My best performance is, I was nervous, but I was going in confidently going, I know I can make an error and I don't have to look over my shoulder. But those were the spaces where I think that trying to gain the intensity there's no problem getting up there and being intense. It's just not working out of making decisions and looking over your shoulder because you got to be able to be comfortable to do things. And if you always feel like you're under the scrutiny of coming out or this, that, the other, I don't know. It's not a great position to be in. But sure. and it's the game.
Mm-hmm. So another kind of a rapid fire question. Matt and I have been slowly drinking our Guinness down in celebration of the holidays. Pat, Harp, Guinness, Smittix. What's the best one to drink?
Guinness. And the best Guinness is from the St. James Brewery. Just getting over there in Dublin, which was our pilgrimage with our Irish national team. And in the old brewery there, they have about an 8-story building where every floor is dedicated to maybe the origin story, the history, the process. And by the time you get to the third one, you're like, forget all this reading. I got to go get my pint of Guinness at the top because there's a rotating 360-degree, beautiful vantage point of Dublin. And it's grade A Guinness. And most people don't know there's actually grades. There's there's really good Guinness, and they bring those out like at St. Patrick's Day and this, that, and the other. And then there's some not so good stuff. And most people don't realize this is there's not only is it a different type of beer, but it's not just a beer that's pushed through kegs on
it's more of a stout.
Carbon. There's nitrogen and carbon that's a mixture to get it through because it's a smooth beer. And I hate to say it, but a lot of American places ruin them. And then someone drinks them and go, this is terrible. It's like, no, you're just drinking someone who's prepared you a terrible Guinness.
Me and Jake had a conversation similar the other day. You've got to let it sit for a certain amount of time here in Australia because of the way our taps are. I used to work behind a bar on that, and there is you can pour a good beer, but Guinness is something else, man. It's a lot harder to master.
Yeah. And that's an experience. That's an experience someone's giving you that exceeds expectation. It's like, well, that's not what I thought. Oh, that's amazing. But if you give them what they, it's harmful to do.
Yeah, and out of curiosity, Pat, do you happen to speak any Gaelic, Irish Gaelic at all?
I have a few, but Pog Mahone has kissed my ass.
And that was perfect because as the Australian cohort who is continuing to try and troll us in the chat, even though he's a good pal of ours, I think that was we'll just say that was directed to him. So how would we practice our Irish Gaelic again? We'd say what?
Pog Mahone.
There you go. There you go, Boyd.
It's usually what you learn. Like it just seems like most people when they get to a new country, it's like I don't know if it's
always swear words.
Learn that naughty stuff, but you learn the swear words first. Like my coaches, I've had a lot of coaches. The first thing you'd learn, and you'd be like, oh, what is that tactical thing? Like they're just calling you a shithead. Oh, okay.
Well, Pat, I'm going to transition here kind of out of the boom room here a little bit, and I apologize. This is Wikipedia, so I hope it's accurate. Your career highlights include that you were the EuroLeague champion in 2000, 3-time champion in the Greek Basketball League, one-time champion in the Spanish league. You were the Russian Cup winner, and you were also the champion in the Polish league. Is that all correct?
I would just rephrase the beginning. I was a part of a team that was that.
Okay. I'm sorry. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, can you talk to us a little bit about what maybe the different, I mean, is it just basically like miniaturized NBAs in different countries? Or, I mean, how would an American fan kind of understand? I mean, we know there's been a tremendous amount of talent coming out of the Greek leagues. The Spanish have been very competitive on international play for a while. We've seen Alan Williams, for example, and some other former Suns go off to play in Russia. I believe Alan Williams is actually in Australia now. And I'm a little less familiar with Polish, but I mean, we've all kind of come, as I mentioned, kind of came of age as you were like actually playing it. We were starting to hear that the international play, especially European play, had really taken a big step forward in competitive play. Can you talk to us a little bit about it?
Sure. There's a couple things to break down there, and the first one is most people don't know this. Most Americans don't know, but professional basketball was over in Europe before it was ever in America.
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. So when sharing that, it's like there is a process that they've used. So we're talking about the model now. Okay. So the U.S. First of all, I'm become a broken record as far as youth. The club model that's actually going on in Europe and in different international countries is one in which you have youth stages, of course, let's just say like from elementary school, middle school, high school, all of those, they're broken down. And so you stay inside that club. And then the coaches that are inside of those are under almost curriculums of what they teach and coach at certain ages. Some of it's been linked to this thing called LTAD, long-term athlete development. And inside of that long-term athlete development, it goes through a chronological age inside of human science. It's like saying, what can the mind mentally take in and what can they do physically? And what are the introductions that are appropriate for those ages in sports? So that's not just in basketball, but it's in all sports as well. So at certain moments, we're talking about if you're going to have a love or an aspiration to play, well, then the first thing when they're working with kids is to advance the love of the game. And the love of the game with kids is to have fun. It's not to try to win a game. That's the almost the egotistical space that adults bring in because they want to win on a scoreboard. And that has nothing to do with the kids. And then you see grotesque spaces where you see kids then trash talking each other, or they're pointing at scoreboards and they're like 7 years old. 7-year-olds thinking about Santa Claus and things like that. They're not thinking about those things. So sorry, the going back to the European club model is those then to create opportunities with travel to go and compete against the other modeled ones. And so now what you have is a collective. So like now you got all these hubs and clubs. And those clubs are then governed usually by one governing body. Like in Ireland, there is one governing body, Basketball Ireland. Now, you don't have this in America, obviously, because we have the disadvantage of being so large. But you do have something inside of in America that's happening is you have a hack space. And I'll take ownership and responsibility for saying this. Anybody can just pick up a team and coach kids. And you can't do that in other countries. In other countries, you have to go through certification and you have to understand sports psychology because you're working with the space of youth. So there's this small phrase that says, you can tell a lot about a community by how they treat youth. Well, you can tell about a country about who they allow to be around youth. And you can't just create spaces of sports programs and then these people are just yelling at kids chasing scoreboards because it's emotionally and mentally damaging to do that to them. So again, is the European club model then, just like anything, is a farm system of tiering up. Now, the best part is when you get to 18, you're not competitive or not. They have play for life in Europe. So there are people that are 40 years old still playing in club models. They're not playing for money, but they're playing for the effectiveness of being healthy, to be around social atmosphere and environments where they're celebrating sport. And then, of course, then you have the model of the competitive side of it, where as they go through that system of the kids and the youth and all of that, they're like anything, some certain kids excel and they have the opportunity to play pro ball. And I saw that and experienced it. And I was always overwhelmed, whether I was in Spain, Greece, Poland, of watching these models and then coming home back to America and just seeing, Barney, the auto tire guy, sponsoring a team by his Uncle Chuck, who can just create a team and go out and travel. And I'm going, wow.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because I think when I was in the Y Rec League, for those who are in the States, I believe I did have somebody that was that was brought up on court charges, and they had to do community service. One of the community services they could do was coach at the YMCA basketball league. So,
isn't that the
love you, coach.
That's the plot of the Mighty Ducks, isn't it?
Kind of, yeah, good little Gordon Bombay.
Yeah, Gordon Bombay. Yeah, exactly.
Well, usually when parents put their children into positions for them to excel, like they put them in a program, it's very rarely understood that the parents are the heroes because they made the decision. They went out and researched. But if you're sitting there in these movies like the Mighty Ducks, who are those parents that are allowing their kids to be in front? Like you're going, hey, parents, wake up, research. This is the thing that I did. Just always blows my mind whenever I get around sports seasons and people are doing tryouts for sporting events or sports clubs. The kids are all nervous and they're asking the coach, but none of the parents are ever asking the culture or the understanding of the tryout for the coach. Like I want to know, I want to speak to some of the people that you like, because you're going to be in environments of like working with my kid and becoming the best version of themselves. And if you're not even the best version of yourself, why would you be around my kid and sitting here telling me how you're going to work with them? Like I wouldn't be the hero partnering with something that's working effectively. I'm sitting here doing guesswork, and then halfway through that, or a week into the season, I'm sitting there yelling at you and going, you know what? I'm mad at you. You're not talking to my kid right. It's like, well, I'm sorry. You signed up for this. You didn't research. Right. You put yourself in that position. Be 100% responsible for yourself.
This is on you.
Yeah,
that's a great take, especially with the pressure that we're seeing kind of continue to increase with America's youth and the parents trying to specialize their kids. I think a little bit in specific sports and just are they living out the kid's dream through them and that kind of stuff. But I want to try and be as respectful as I can with your time, Pat. And I know we've got so many other things to try and cover, so I'm going to try and
sorry.
It's going to be massively crunch it here. But 7 seconds or less, 2005, 2006, a couple quick questions I have on that. Steve Nash, does he owe his MVP to you?
Yes.
Thank you. And Raja Bell, did you teach him how to clothesline Kobe Bryant before he did it?
No, but I will tell you another story that I knew about Raja is, I was on the B squad and the practice side of things. So we had to go up against, of course, the A squad. And one day the B squad was getting the best of the A squad. I think Amari wasn't playing a whole lot of defense than the other. And, we started scoring. And I remember there was a point where we're on a fast break and I make it down and I'm under the basket. And Raja's like the only buddy getting back. And his frustration is really wearing on him because here's this consistent approach to getting back. And he said, there's too many holes to plug in the boat. I'm filling all of them. He's getting so pissed off. He does the exact same thing he did to Kobe. He did to me. Just horse collars me around the Adams.
Way to mention the war, Jay.
Pulls me down. And I'm sitting there and I love Raja. Like I know it wasn't an intent to hurt me, but it's like a sibling. I'm on the ground laughing.
I was going to say, in fairness, you were much larger than Raja, too.
Yeah, like I wouldn't sit there. I understood him to like going, okay, he's not trying to hurt me. He's just pissed. Yeah. If he had punched me in the face, I'm sitting there going, okay, now we're going to go. But we're sitting there, and Mark Ivoroni's like, hey, what the hell's going on here? And Raja's just sitting there, and he's just having a tantrum. But it's funny. Then I see, a while back, and then you see it fast forward, and you see it happening to Kobe. I'm like, hey, I know that move on both ends.
I've seen that before somewhere.
I helped him retire. Yeah.
I helped him. Yeah.
Go a
little bit higher.
I'm sure a question that weighed on a lot of Suns fans with that, especially with that era. How close were we, do you think, to really winning it all? Can you put an analysis on that?
Yeah, I can. People probably won't like it. I know they didn't like it when I said it in the newspaper. That model at the time was a hybrid, yeah. So you're hybriding, going back to our initial 5 minutes. We're putting something new into a system, and it looks sexy. It's hot, man. It is fast. It's selling tickets. We're the darlings of the nation, but it's unproven. Not because it's unproven. It's like saying, hey, we're going to try WD-40, but still got to get to WD-1, WD-2. So we're going through this evolution phase, and at that time there was a 7-man rotation. A 7-man rotation that, 2 years that I was there, the 2 seasons, by the time we get to this, and it's worked in the regular season, the games in the playoffs are different, that we're starting to, putting together guys with duct tape. They got, broken backs and their noses are leaking with blood. And the other 7 guys, whether people like it or not, the other 7 guys are disgruntled because we're not being spoken to. Like just an absolute shit show of just nothing. Like Robert Sarver, D'Antoni, none of them are saying hello to us. We're obsolete. We're not the 7 cool kids at high school. We're the 7 nerds. And in that case, you're just sitting there going, hey, good luck creating an environment of winning a championship. Because if you do yes, I've experienced championships, and I've experienced championships from autocratic leaders who would scream at everybody. And here we are 20, 30 years later, and I wouldn't call them to say happy birthday because there's no relationship. It was a transaction. It was a transactional relationship. And then there are ones that I've had that were looking out for our best interests. They were looking out for individual goals, setting and this, that, and the other. And I'm not trying to be unfair to Mike D'Antoni, because in a hybrid space, he's working and spinning plates where he's going, okay, keep this one spinning, keep this one spinning. And it's very hard to keep it all together. And I'm happy that he got, some notoriety and some space to grow and have opportunities in other teams. But at the same time, it did leave some damage in the background. And as Suns fans and Orange Planet would say, I love this guys, this was great. Getting those moments at the end and shooting 3 threes and this and the other, that was cool. But you still don't understand what we're all going through inside of that. And we were still good, like Steve Nash, Raj, and all. And oh yeah, we were making good money, and I'm not crying. What I'm saying is we were in this position of a new hybrid space, and we were getting close to the playoffs. But some of us were in the playoffs, and some of us weren't, physically. So there was a lot of stuff going on at that time. The memories are fantastic. Again, it's a blessing to be a part of that and to have seen it. But there's a lot to that story.
Mm-hmm. No, that's I feel like that was a common knock that Matt and I know Hamill and I probably have heard about D'Antoni. I mean, it followed him throughout his career a little bit, is that he ran very short rotations that burned guys out. And Tom Thibodeau might be the current NBA coach that has kind of the same reputation that follows him around, is I'm going to keep going with these guys. And then when they're forced to go to somebody else, do they pull them back too quick, or do they give them room to grow and develop? But I'm sorry, I got 2 minutes left, and I wanted to talk about Ireland. So I'll ask you some quick questions, Pat. Corned beef, cabbage, soda bread. What's if there was a, thank you. I already love the reaction.
Green beer.
Yeah, exactly. If you wanted to go back home, see the family, see the old country, and you said, hey, I need a traditional Irish meal, what are they fixing, Big Pat Burke?
A very good meal would be lamb.
Ooh, now you're talking about language.
Some mint jelly. You'd have, brown bread is big over there. But, I think one of the biggest things, and it's probably the easiest way to bring a lot of newcomers in, is the Irish breakfast. To have Irish sausages, and just the Irish breakfast itself is like an experience. It's very hearty. It's good. And every time I land, I'm like right away, like, I got to get that breakfast in, And that's,
now, are we just talking Irish sausages, or what?
Irish sausages, rashers, black pudding, white pudding, all of it. I mean, there's so many things on the menu that again, it's a lot of new stuff. And growing up back in Cleveland, I mean, this was like the cartel. Like back then, obviously, you didn't have metal detectors. You could go pick up your people at the airport coming from Ireland. You get right to the gate. my grandparents or people would come over and they'd have a little leather pouch, and all the aunts and uncles would be having their head in like, "Did you bring the sausages?" And all the heads would go into the bag, right, the carry-on, because they would have sausages and pudding. And the first thing they would do is they're all sitting there like they're needing their fix. Is they're sitting there and they get race back to someone's house, the closest one to the airport, and they'd start frying it up because they got to get their cholesterol up. But they got to get that Irish breakfast. Yeah.
Well, what's the
Did you
I
bring
guess
this?
last quick question? So you're the first NBA player to come out of Ireland. Has the basketball interest improved in Ireland? Do you think?
Popularity is the basketball is a great sport for Ireland. First of all, the weather, the cold, the wet, this, that, and the other. Indoor, it's a sports loving country that loves the fast pace of the game. They've done a great job as far as Basketball Ireland creating, again, curriculum space like in those clubs, and they're gaining popularity. And one of the things adding to it, which is amazing, is when I was around 16, if I showed up at 6'8", 6'9", it turned heads. They've opened up that country for Latvians, Polish, Lithuanians. There's a number of countries from Africa that people have moved in. The demographic and the size of people is changing. It's the funniest thing is you could sit there with an Irish team if they don't speak. I mean, because again, you're seeing all walks of life, and everyone's got this Irish accent. If you took the American team and a USA team like 16 and under, and an Irish team, and you put them in two different uniforms, you wouldn't be able to guess if they didn't talk who was what, because it's going to look so Americanized with size. There's 7-footers, there's big guards, there's all this. Just right now, what they need is the opportunity to recreate the motivation, because it's so close here. Even if it's a state away, kids here still have the dream. It's always, hey, I want to play in the NBA. Whereas in Ireland, there are other sports, Gaelic football, Gaelic Irish hurling, which have their own popularity. They're the number one. So basketball may be the third or fourth sport of popularity, and anybody in the town who's putting all their time into it might get the repercussion, or sorry, the affirmation of people going, well, you're not going to go anywhere with that. You should really try hurling or this. And right now you're getting kids that are breaking that because they're getting the D1 experience. We've got a number of D1 scholarships that are going on to kids that are playing in the Irish basketball system. And that is a huge breakthrough, because now if that exists, now you have this space of, it's almost like when we were kids and we would look at a jersey on the wall and go, oh, I remember that person. He was an all-star. What are some of the things that they would do in drills? And with that happening, now we're getting kids in Ireland who are going in. Like one of my directors that we have in sort of the Hoops Life program is, we got shooting machines in Ireland, like Dr. Dish shooting machines, that people are like, what in the hell is that? What, Jesus, Maria Joseph, what's that machine there? Is that for shooting potatoes? Like, no, that's a rebounding machine. And kids are getting the training to do it. And as it starts to go, we're looking at the cusp of what we talked about before. When they see it, they're inspired or aspired to start moving, and we'll start to see that next level of athletes start to make their way. It's not just the Pat Burke who was born and he moves from ice hockey with a growth spurt and he's in America. Now we're going to see kids from Ireland have that opportunity to do things that's going to be special.
Great. Well, as we move to close, I'm going to just read off real quick. We've got the Milwaukee Bucks coming up tomorrow. The Philadelphia 76ers coming up, the Atlanta Hawks as well, that we'll be playing before we are able to podcast again. So I'm going to ask Matt and Hamo real quick predictions and where to find them. But Pat, for you, I'm going to ask you what you're working on now and where people can find you too. So I'm going to I'll kick us off so everyone can kind of think about their answer, but I'm going to predict a 2-1. I want it to be 3-0, obviously, but I think the Bucks game is going to give us a little bit of trouble. Let's turn it over to Matt. Prediction. And you can find me at Fallen Founder on Twitter. Matt, predictions and where they can follow you.
Yeah, I'm the same as you, mate. 2-1. I think the early tip off tomorrow is gonna get us. I think. Yeah, and you can find me at the Shooters Lounge 3 on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks very much, man.
Thank you, Hamo.
Yeah, you can find me at Sir Hamo on Twitter. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with Pat Burke. Thank you very much, Pat, for coming on. This has been incredible. I said to the boys beforehand, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I was so nervous, but you made me feel at ease, man. And I like a lot of what you're talking about. So I'm gonna be checking out what you're doing. We'll get to that a little bit later, but I'm going to be checking out what you're doing, man, because I'm loving your vibe. I'm loving what
Awesome.
you're talking about, bro.
I appreciate that. That really means a lot for you to share that. So that's something that I take to heart.
Thank you, man. And yeah, we'll get to that a bit later. But I'm going to go full Boyd this week. Yeah, it's all W's. We're just taking all W's. I'm feeling so positive. I'm feeling so. Oh, let's go. Getting all them wins, man. It doesn't matter. We got them all. Don't care who they are. Doesn't matter. All dubs. Hit me at Sir Hammer. Love you guys. Planeteers.
All right, Pat. And I know you've been working on some stuff, especially, I think you mentioned a little bit about mental health for kids that are playing the game. Talk a little bit about that, what you're working on now, and, of course, where people can find you.
So after I ended playing, I went into broadcasting, and that was short-lived. And then I started working with kids, and I realized real quick that I was trash at any type of transformative education. I went and started educating myself. How do you work with kids? How do you understand how humans learn? How do you create a safe space where you allow them to be motivated and find love to the game? And so we created a program called Hoops Life. And in doing so, we had 3 curriculums that go through self-empowerment and opportunities to set goals, and then had to work as a team. And we moved that to Ireland. We're in about 5 or 6 academies doing it over there. You can find us at, I think it's hoopslifeireland.com. And it goes through a mission statement of understanding that, the game, I don't own the game. Nobody owns the game. James Naismith invented a game. And where we're at today is the opportunity to be ambassadors of it, to show and give kids that journey space of like, hey, you can do a lot with this game, but of course it's setting goals and achieving and having conversations that may be different than the ones that you have anywhere else. And that's what we did with Hoops Life. And outside of that, I've worked with some of my former teammates. Currently, Jermaine Jones, another one of the Phoenix Suns. I've been working with him about talking to other academies and schools about opportunities to create proposals on building programs like this so that it's more than just sports that people are getting, and it's more to support the parents and to assist them in, I say, collaborating, creating a safe space for their kids, but also keeping that dream alive of maybe doing something with sports. So that's where I'm at.
Well, that's great. And
that's awesome, man.
Really do. Yeah. Remember, guys, you can be a 6'2" Midwestern kid from Iowa, and you can play power forward and play the Charles Barkley role if that's where your dream is. That's where your passion lies.
5'11", not even 5'11" from Australia. You still get to go on here and talk to Pat Burke, so I don't know. Get experience, get the best of it.
To echo Hamo, to echo Matt, Pat, thank you so much for coming. We'll play the outro, everyone. I hope you guys had a good time with the show. And
Happy St. Pat's.
That's right. Happy St. Pat's. And don't drink and drive, guys. Get yourself an Uber if you need to. Get yourself a Lyft. And Al McCoy, take us home, buddy.
Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stay with us as the Suns get set to shine here on their home court.
Here's Perry. The guard hurt. Here's the jump shot. Good. It's good.
Al McCoy with you courtside. Pumped up a 3.
Shazam! He ties it. ADA. Al and Tim up here.
Happy birthday!
Right. Yeah.
I know it's the ball, but happy birthday, baby!
Here's Cameron Payne out on top. Durant, 3-pointer straight away.
Shazam!
I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone in this arena this afternoon, to all of those that are watching and listening on radio and TV. Thank you for allowing me to tell the story of the Suns for 51 great years.
That pretty much wraps things up here. And for one last time, this is Al McCoy saying thanks for being there. Thanks for being with us tonight. And from the Footprint Center here in downtown Phoenix, we'll just say so long for now.